Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's jump right into a wildly exhausting problem that honestly, almost every single one of us faces at some point. You know that feeling where you're just wearing yourself out, arguing with an event that has already finished happening? It's totally natural, but man, it drains our finite energy. So today, we're breaking down an ancient discipline that takes all that wasted energy and redirects it somewhere it can actually do some good. We're looking at a concept called Amor Fati, which literally translates to a love of fate or a love of what actually happened.
Think about that feeling of being stuck litigating the past. Maybe it's a sudden layoff, a scary medical diagnosis, a terrible breakup, or even just years spent heading in a direction that turned out to be a dead end. You aren't just processing the event, you are actively building a case. You're cross-examining your past self and entering evidence into a court that closed permanently the exact second the thing occurred. And it is incredibly draining, right? Because you are the only one still sitting in that courtroom.
So, I want you to ask yourself honestly right now, are you litigating the past? Look, the past is the single most reliably fixed object in the universe. Your opinion about it, it's completely irrelevant to the actual facts of what went down. When we stubbornly resist a fixed, unchangeable event, that resistance actually becomes a secondary self-inflicted injury. We're literally hurting ourselves all over again simply by refusing to accept reality. Just think about the number 10 for a second. 10 years. That is the stark reality of this secondary injury. The initial event, the bad year, the painful transition, might only take 1 year of your life to happen. But that stubborn refusal to accept it, that can easily steal 10 years of your finite life. That's a whole decade spent fighting a ghost instead of actually living in the present. Crazy, right? Okay, moving on to section 1. Getting the label right. Nietzsche's words, Stoic substance. So here's the thing. We really need to stop treating Amor Fati like it's just some cheap internet merchandise or a magical spell and start applying the highly demanding philosophy that actually sits behind it. To do that, we've got to separate the origin of the phrase from the origin of the practice. On one side, we have Friedrich Nietzsche. He coined the Latin term Amor Fati in the 1880s in his book, The Gay Science. Basically, he supplied the label. But on the other side, we have the ancient Stoics. They lived a whopping 1,700 years prior, and they are the ones who actually built the philosophical engine. They supplied the substance. Knowing this distinction is absolutely crucial because it forces us to look past a catchy bumper sticker and look directly at what the Stoics actually taught. Let's look at how the Stoic teacher Epictetus put it. He said, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well." Now, this isn't just some poetic advice to make you feel good. It's actually a strict, practical training instruction. He's telling us point blank that we have to relocate our wanting. You don't try to bend the world with your mind. You change your mind to align with the real world. And then, consider Seneca's translation of the Stoic philosopher Cleanthes. He writes, "I, the willing soul, fate leads, but the unwilling drags along." Just sit with that vivid image for a second. Seneca isn't saying that if you're just a positive, willing person, you somehow magically escape fate. No, everyone goes to the exact same destination. What this brilliant quote reveals is that you have total control over how you get there. Which brings us to a core choice. Section 2, walking versus being dragged. You have exactly one choice here. Amor Fati is simply the decision to walk with fate rather than fight it. So let me throw a pretty stark challenge your way right now. Look at your current situation today, the exact one that's causing you stress or pain right now, and decide, are you walking or are you being dragged? Because here's the truth, you are going the exact same distance either way. The only variable left to you is how much of your own skin you want to leave out there on the road. Let's move to section 3. Obstacles are raw material. Love of fate is not passive resignation. You see, this philosophy gets completely destroyed in practice by people who confuse acceptance with giving up. Throwing their hands in the air and just reaching for the TV remote. Passive resignation says, well, nothing I do matters, so I'm going to do nothing. That is a total psychological shutdown. But Amor Fati, it says, okay, this is now the material, so what can be built? It's a commission. Accepting a difficult situation is absolutely not the end of the sentence. The verb is still yours. You still have to act. The crucial point is perfectly captured right here in this quote from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations 5:20. We hear the phrase, the obstacle is the way, all the time, right? But Marcus is so much more precise.
He says the mind converts and changes the hindrance. The obstacle doesn't just miraculously become a clear paved path all by itself. A blocked road is literally just a blocked road. Rather, your mind has to step up and perform that active, demanding conversion to turn that hindrance into fuel.
Think about it like this. Every sculptor in history worked with flawed stone, and not a single one of them got to choose the block. It's such a highly visual reality, isn't it? Nobody has ever stood in an art gallery and asked if the marble had a good attitude. No way. They just admire the artist who picked up the chisel and cut with the grain that was actually there. You have to remember, you are the sculptor of your own life. Of course, you don't just magically develop this incredibly resilient mindset for the very first time during a sudden catastrophe. You have to practice, and you do it through daily repetition. Work on a perfectly normal Tuesday. Look at these examples. The delayed train, the meeting that runs 40 minutes over, the rain ruining your outdoor weekend plans. This is your training ground right here. When these trivial, annoying things happen, you have to catch your reflex of whining this shouldn't happen and immediately replace it with, okay, what is the good move from here?
But let's take a breath for a second. Some things are just bad. Genuine catastrophes are terrible. Amor Fati does not ask you to stand over a tragedy and force yourself to call it a blessing. Any version of this philosophy that demands you lie to yourself about your own pain, that's just a fragile performance. And performances will inevitably collapse exactly when you need them most.
That leads us to Section 4, refusing the counterfeit, stopping the lawsuit against your own life. What we really need is an honest, rugged version of Stoicism, one that honors natural human grief, while simultaneously stripping away all that toxic internet positivity. The counterfeit version is the cruelty of telling a grieving person that their painful loss was secretly a gift. That isn't Stoicism at all. It's literally just cruelty with a fancy Latin phrase attached to it. The true, honest Stoic approach is rugged acceptance. This is real, it's finished, and it is my material. The Stoics knew you weren't made of stone. What they refused was that optional, totally exhausting layer of arguing with the event for years on end. And when you finally strip away that argument, you're left with this really profound realization. Everything that has happened to you is now permanent, unchangeable, and yours. Now, at first, that might sound like a restrictive prison, but if you just shift your perspective a little, you realize it's actually an inventory. It's the ultimate freedom from fighting facts you absolutely cannot alter. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really powerful vow. I will not waste what happened to me. I highly encourage you to adopt this, because the people who do remarkable things with their lives aren't the ones who are handed better, smoother materials. They're the ones who stopped waiting to be issued a different set of materials and simply started building with what was actually on the table. Stop litigating the past. Take your material, pick up the chisel, and get to work. So ask yourself, what masterpiece are you delaying because you're too busy arguing with the marble? If this mindset shift resonated with you, there is a whole world of ancient Stoic wisdom just waiting to help you turn your daily obstacles into fuel. Dive into the sources, and let's see what you can build.